hey, so this is my 1 year goal and my 90-day plan for the multi seven figure agency that I was talking to. And I removed all their information, so you'll never know who it is. But I think this might be important for some agency owners out there to understand and maybe implement some things in their business. And I'm only going to go over this first part because this is going to be like half an hour long if I go over all of it. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to go over the rest of this. But I just wanted to start with my 1 year goals, and maybe you'll get some good things from there. So the first part of this was to increase the revenue capacity of the team by 20 to 30%. And what I mean by that is if someone can currently handle 10 clients, we want them to either handle 12 to 13 clients, or even more preferably handle 10 larger clients. And you can do this in two ways. The first way is through increasing pricing so that your team can handle more revenue for the same amount of work. And the second way to do this is take a look at processes, take a hard look at processes and see where you can remove waste, where you can remove revisions that eat up a lot of the team's time, where you can remove a lot of back and forth that eat up the team's time, and then through a lot of these structural changes that we would make here. But this is totally doable, especially within a year. And what's important about this is that any capacity increase is 100% profit, goes straight to your bottom line. So if your team is currently 20% net, and each person on the team can handle 10 clients, and you increase that to 12 people, so you've increased their capacity 20%, that 20% goes straight to your bottom line, and you now have doubled EBITDA as long as you bring on those additional clients and fill that capacity. So this one change alone, you can just double EBITDA if you're 20% net and bring on 20% additional capacity. The second part of this is increasing month two reorders by 50%. So this was a TikTok UGC agency. So we were taking a look at, okay, from month one to month two, which is going to be the highest churn month, what is that number? And they actually didn't have that. So I just said by 50% because I think that's doable if you're tracking the metrics that are below this. I also think down here that I'll talk about this, there's an even better way to go about this. But assuming that we kept contracts for 1 month contracts, this is how we go about doing this. So I want to think about from the client's perspective, what are the operational KPIs that we would need to hit that they would really value in order for them to reorder or to stay. And this starts with really understanding what clients value and then creating KPIs around that. So I have 5 KPIs here, and you'll notice these are all really process-oriented KPIs. And that's on purpose because if we build a good process, we'll have a good outcome. So the first one is to increase our hit rate by X percentage points. And the hit rate is what percentage of ads that we give to clients beat their control. And whether that control is their best performing ad or whether it spends X amount of dollars is dependent upon the client. But whatever that is, we want to be tracking that on a consistent basis so that we can have a target for the team to beat. So that's the first one, is increase the hit rate. They didn't have that number, so I don't have a number here, but you could conceivably increase this by 50% in a year as well if you focus on it. The second part of this is decreasing lead time by 50%. Most people won't even track this metric or these other operational excellence metrics. And the reason that we track lead time is because money loves speed. And it took them on average 6 to 7 weeks to deliver UGC to a client. And I'm like, imagine if we could deliver it in 3 weeks with better performance. Like, what would that do to our clients' perspective of us? Like, they would want to renew, right? And they tell all their friends about us. And when you decrease lead times, you take a hard look at where is all the waste in the organization and the process of delivering this thing to a client, and how can we remove all those things? How can we try to remove all the back and forth between clients and the team because you didn't get information right the first time from them? How can we make the organization more efficient from a structural perspective so that you can actually have workflow between teams very easily? So there's a lot of ways to do this that are kind of sophisticated, so I'm not going to get into it. But the ultimate service would be like, you pay me for UGC and the next day you get it, and then add a performance element to like, and by the way, you don't pay unless it performs, right? So we want to decrease lead times so that we can please our clients more, like they're going to be happier. And also, if we do want to do performance contracts, like I'd rather collect in 2 weeks or 1 week than 6 to 8 weeks later, because that cash flow hurts when we're not collecting it. So lead times, we want to cut that in half. This is doable. Decrease errors by 50%. And errors are just anything that a client's received where they come back to you and they're like, oh, you guys messed up. So like for email, this might be you messed up a link or a design. For creative, it's like, oh, it wasn't on brand. That's pretty common. So anything that you've released to a client that they come back to you, and then revisions is anything prior to release to a client where you just gave them a part of the work product. So if you give them a vision board and they kick back, or you give them like a version one of a creative and they kick it back, like any of those touch points with the client where they kick something back to you and they say, no, I know more than you about this. Like I'm the expert, not you. Like to the client, that's in their mind. They're like, why am I hiring this person if I'm telling them what to do, right? And I like Elon Musk with Tesla when he was creating full self-driving. He's like, any user input is error, right? Like if you have to touch the wheel or do anything, it's an error. It's the same thing here. Like if a client has to tell you you did something wrong, that's your fault for not getting the information up front from the client from what they want, or for ensuring the team is delivering something that the client wanted. So we want to track these, and every single one of them, we want to have a root cause analysis of why there was a revision. And maybe you don't have time to do that now. So you start with what are we looking at that has the most revisions, and then how do we attack that? But you should be looking at each one of these individually eventually to get this down. And that's how you decrease revisions, is like root cause analysis of why it happened with the team so they understand why. And then what are some solutions we can implement to try to fix it. All right. And then on-time delivery, increasing this by 50%. So they currently delivered UGC at about 70% on time. So if they gave a due date to a client, they would hit that due date 70% of the time, which like, just think about if you order something and it's late, like you're pissed that it's late. So this should be like, all these are very basic things that your clients want that like nobody does, right? Like nobody does things quickly. Nobody does things that are error free or that don't require multiple revisions or that are on time. Like these are the basic things they used to be doing as an agency that nobody does. But if you just do these things, you'll be miles ahead of other agencies. Okay, off my high horse. The second part of this was how do we increase revenue and profits by 100%? And so they had a really unique lead gen structure, which I can't get into. But what I can say is that the CEO and salesperson only had a couple sales calls a day. And I'm like, guys, like we gotta double this like ASAP, because it was all referral based. They didn't have any real like lead gen plan. So I'm like, we can do all these things too, but like increasing revenue capacity doesn't matter if we don't bring on new clients. So we want to increase this, and I have like the plan kind of down here on how I go about doing that. But again, for time, we're at like almost 9 minutes already. It'd take me an hour to do all this. And then lastly was refining the offers and pricing, because they only did 1 month contracts, and they might sell like a large contract, but it'd be 1 month. And I'm like, guys, it's insane that we don't have no continuity contracts, so no monthly contracts, but even more insane, we don't have any performance contracts. I think they have like 1 or 2 performance contracts. And I'm like, guys, we could double revenue per client overnight because the service was actually pretty good. It just took a long time to deliver by moving all the contracts to performance. Now, I wouldn't actually move all the contracts to performance overnight because again, lead times were six weeks. So we'd have to have 6 weeks of cash flow before we delivered something, and then it'd have to spend. So you're probably looking at realistically 8 to 10 weeks before any cash is collected on the client, which is way too long. But I was like, let's fix the operational stuff here so we can bring on more clients, and then let's change this to a performance model and like guaranteed double EBITDA if the rest of this goes well. So let me know if you'd like to hear the rest of this, and I can walk you through what I do in my 90-day plan. And I hope that you enjoyed this.